Hello, I'm John Tibbetts, and in the screening room today I'm talking with Michael Caine, one of the stars of Sidney Lumet's new film, Deathtrap, a man who incidentally can tell you all about how to make a killing in the theater. That's about probably all we can say.
Yes.
Surprise upon surprise in Deathtrap, so maybe we shouldn't talk about that too much. But, you know, in another film, Sleuth, which I think maybe resembles this just a bit, you seem to have a facility to play an intellectual character who has a strong undercurrent of emotions that we are allowed to see occasionally. Is this kind of a stock and trade of yours? It seems to be a characteristic I've noticed with you a lot.
Now that you mention it, yes, it is a characteristic. It's the first time I've ever thought of it. But I suppose it's because basically I am an emotional man, and being very British, I sort of hide it.
But you don't hide the accent.
Yeah, it just comes out. It comes out. People see it, and of course, in something like Deathtrap, where you eventually have to show it and it wells up, but then I can do it. You know, I mean, and I enjoy it.
Deathtrap is a motion picture, I think, that's going to satisfy a lot of people who have that hunger for good, strong plots and characters. Something that's maybe been missing in all too many films recently. What do you think?
I was just thinking of that because I just saw an article in the newspaper about it, which the man said they do make them like they used to, and he quoted Deathtrap as being one. What we've done for a long time is concentrate on things and the methods of shooting and special effects, and we haven't concentrated on people or on actors for a while. And in Deathtrap, you concentrate on a plot, which is, I think, wondrous from Ira Levin, the playwright, and you concentrate on the actors and the characterizations.
Some of that concentration must be endangered occasionally, though. I'm referring to near the end of the film. There's a lot of strobe lighting effects. Was that a distraction on the set?
No, not really, because you got used to it. I mean, I was using it to see where I was going in the end. And it's amazing. If you see it quickly like you do for the first time, it's very off-putting, but it's amazing how you get used to it.
Let's talk about some of your career before Deathtrap. You almost worked with Sidney Lumet in his motion picture, The Hill.
That's
what
right.
happened there?
Yeah, I was cast in The Hill in a small part, I was contracted and everything. I was signed to do it, and I went to Sydney and I said, well, I've got a chance to play a bigger part than this in another film. Could you let me out of my contract? So he said yes, and the other part he let me out to do was Alfie, which was the most fortunate film I ever made, I think, because that's what sort of made everything for me.
That must have taken a certain amount of guts to say to a man, I have to get out of this role.
Yeah, but I really wanted to play Alfie because I'd already seen, it was rather like Deathtrap, I'd already seen it in the theatre. Alfie was a stage play, and I really wanted to play it, like the way I really wanted to play Sidney Brule in Deathtrap.
As opposed to Deathtrap, you've played a number of adventurous characters. Of course, we're talking about things like Man Who Would Be King and Zulu.
And the Harry Palmers and all that with the spies. I've done most genres in film.
The location work involved in filmmaking of that sort, I suppose, exerts its very peculiar demands on you.
Well, yes, because what happens is you become a family of people, and you sort of live in each other's pockets when you're away like that. But what happened to me is I got married and had a family, and as I had my own family, I didn't want to leave them behind, so I did less and less of the location work. I'm not mad keen to do it, and if I do, I only do it where I can take my family with me, because I don't like to be parted very long.
In fact, that brings something up. I understand as a child you spent a lot of time away from your family because of the air raids.
For the Blitz, yeah, I was evacuated, and that wasn't very pleasant once I was away from my mother. I was only 6 years old then. And I had some very unpleasant experiences in the child abuse area when I was sent away on my own. And so I think it's grown up with me. Is I don't ever like to be away from my own children.
Well, there's almost a Dickensian quality about that. The little boy cast adrift.
my life is it's just like a Dickens story, I tell you. As a matter of fact, I grew up in the borough where Dickens wrote everything, which is I grew up in the borough of Southwark in London, which is the first borough in the world. It was the borough where the Globe Theatre was, where Shakespeare wrote, and where Dickens lived in the St George's Inn, and where he wrote all his stories.
I don't suppose we're going to follow that up then maybe with some motion picture work involving some Dickens in the future, are we?
No, I haven't.
That would be perfect.
I haven't thought of it, but I'm sure I'd be ideal for it because I understand the milieu in which he wrote and the characters he wrote about. Mm-hmm. But also, the next street to me was born Charlie Chaplin, so it keeps going and coming right up.
I understand that Mr. Lumet directed a lot of Deathtrap using long takes.
Yes.
This actually recreates a theatrical experience then for you, and I suppose that you had no way of knowing how it would be cut then. Is that a problem?
No, because if you have long takes, they can't cut. You see what I mean? It's very difficult. If they have long takes, you can only cut if you stop the camera. So once you start tracking. But what it does do is gives you tremendous intensity in the scenes.
Yeah, and as far as I'm...
yeah, instead of cutting it up and you're going right, I mean, like the very opening sequence when I walk in on my wife was one long take, and to do that at the beginning of the film and suddenly get rid of 6 pages of dialogue in 3 or 4 minutes, you know, was a very refreshing way to start a film, and you felt you'd done something, you know, and it wasn't even lunchtime yet.
And as far as I'm concerned, Deathtrap is all too short, all the more intense for that. I want to thank you, Michael Caine, appearing in Sidney Lumet's new film, Deathtrap. I'm John Tibbetts. Thank you very much.